Welcome to the Psychology Undergrad. Honestly, grab a chair, clear off that massive stack of textbooks, and maybe crack open a second energy drink.
Yeah.
You're absolutely going to need it today.
Oh, without a doubt.
We just have a really massive session ahead of us. I'm hoping you managed to get through the reading list for this week because, frankly, my head is still kind of spinning.
It is a super heavy syllabus week. There's just no getting around that. I mean, we are deep in the weeds of Unit 9 right now.
Right.
We're trying to dissect the Kaplan and Patrizio paper on ethics, and then we have to somehow make sense of that incredibly dense qualitative study by MacDougall and her colleagues.
Yeah, the MacDougall one.
Exactly. It really feels like we have enough material here to cover the entire final exam just on the topic of reproductive psychology alone.
Oh, completely. And just to kind of set the scene for everyone listening in on our study group today, we aren't just talking about, having babies in some abstract way. We are tackling what might actually the single most controversial topic in the entire course. The syllabus officially calls it late maternal age and postmenopausal reproduction.
Which is such a dry way to put it.
Right. But really, we are talking about the deep psychology and the ethics of delaying childbearing until the very end.
It is the ultimate clash, isn't it? It's this massive tension between the biological clock, which has a very strict, very unforgiving deadline, and the social clock, which just seems to be getting pushed back further and further every single decade.
Exactly. I think the MacDougall paper used the term inconvenient biology.
Oh, yes.
Which I highlighted immediately in neon yellow. It's such a perfect encapsulation of the actual problem. It's this idea that socially, professionally, and financially, we just might not be ready for kids until our 40s.
Because we're still building careers.
Right. Paying off loans, maybe finding partners way later, but biologically.
Right.
Our bodies are literally screaming at us to get moving in our 20s.
It's a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
And the core question we have to answer for this module isn't just about the science or the capability. I mean, we know technology can make a 66-year-old woman pregnant now.
Yeah. The technology definitely exists.
We have the petri dishes, we have the hormones. The real question the professors want us to grapple with is, should it?
That is the prompt. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. So let's unpack this. Because usually when we talk about older parents or a geriatric pregnancy...
Which is a terrible term, by the way.
I hate it so much. I hate that the medical field still uses that phrase. But usually, I think most people picture someone in their early 40s.
Maybe
42, 43.
Sure, yeah.
But the reading list this week started off with some absolute outliers that completely blew my mind. We really need to talk about the world's oldest mom phenomena.
These are the absolute headline grabbers.
Yeah.
Kaplan and Patrizio open their paper with these specific cases, not just for shock value, but to show exactly how far the technology has pushed the boundary.
Right.
It's not just pushing the envelope, it's tearing the envelope completely open. It forces us to ask where the line actually is.
The one that stuck with me the most, and I honestly think it's the one most likely to come up on the exam because of all the ethical layers, was Maria del Carmen Busada de Lara.
The Spanish case, right, from 2006.
Yes, exactly. So set the scene. The year is 2006. She gives birth to twin boys. She was 66 years old.
66. You just have to think about that for a second. That is retirement age.
Literally.
That is Social Security age. That is the age where most people are looking forward to spoiling grandkids on the weekend, not doing 3 a.m. feedings every single night.
And she didn't just stumble into it. This is where the psychology gets really complex and fascinating for our deep dive. To get that treatment, she had to travel all the way to Los Angeles to a fertility clinic out there. And here's the kicker. She lied.
She did.
She explicitly lied to the doctors. She told the clinic she was 55, which was apparently their strict cutoff policy, but she was actually 66.
That deception is so crucial to the ethical debate. It shows the absolute desperation, this incredible drive to make this happen no matter what. But you also have to look at the massive financial commitment. I remember reading in the case notes, didn't she sell her house to pay for this?
She literally liquidated her assets. She sold her entire house to pay for the IVF.
Wow.
Talk about motivation. Talk about drive. But the deeply tragic part of this story, and I think this is why it's in our ethics unit rather than just a straight medical textbook, is what happened next. She defended her decision in the press when people criticized her.
Yeah.
She literally said, "My mother lived to be 101, so I'm going to be around for a very long time."
That is the optimism bias right there on full display. We see that in psychology all the time.
Yeah, the "it won't happen to me" thing.
Exactly. Or I come from good stock, or I have good genes. It's a cognitive distortion that allows us to just completely ignore statistical realities.
Seriously. Because the reality was brutal. She died of stomach cancer at age 69. Her twins were only 2 years old.
And that right there is the crux of the ethical argument against doing this. You have her brother, who was publicly criticizing her, basically asking the question that the ethics committee wants us to ask: who is going to raise these children?
Right.
And then you have her countering with this steadfast belief in her own longevity. It really highlights that severe disconnect between what we want to be true about our lifespan and the harsh statistical reality.
It wasn't just her, though. The readings also mentioned Adriana Iliescu from Romania. She was also 66.
Yeah.
This case was honestly heartbreaking in a totally different way. She was actually pregnant with triplets initially.
This is a classic example of the medical risk scaling way up. Triplets at 66. The human body is simply not designed for that kind of load.
Exactly. One fetus died in utero. Another one died shortly after birth. Only one survived. It was just a tragedy.
That case brings up the extreme medical risk factor, which we definitely need to get to in a minute. But it also highlights the heroic measures aspect of this. These aren't easy breezy pregnancies. These are high risk, medically intensive situations. It's not like a natural pregnancy where you just sort of glow for 9 months and do some prenatal yoga. This is an all-out medical battle.
And then there was Satyabama Mahapatra in India. She was 65. This was her first child after 50 years of marriage. 50 years. Can you even imagine the psychological weight of that? Waiting half a century for a child?
That actually touches on the cultural psychology aspect of the readings, which I found totally fascinating. In the Kaplan text, they list out the motivations, like why go to these absolute extreme lengths? Because for someone like Mahapatra or Amkari Panwar, who is 70, by the way.
70. That is just, I can't even wrap my head around being a new mom at 70.
I know. But the motivation for Panwar was specifically the intense desire for a male heir.
Right.
In certain cultures, the pressure to produce a son is so unbelievably intense that it just overrides all standard age norms. It becomes a societal duty. It's about lineage. It's about inheritance, social standing. And for Mahapatra, the text explicitly mentions the shame of being childless.
That's a really important point to stress for your notes. We tend to view this through a very Western lens of career first, but for a lot of these women, it's about removing a lifelong societal stigma. It's almost like, okay, if we apply Maslow's hierarchy of needs here.
Oh, good call. I love applying Maslow to these case studies. It's such a good mental framework for the exam.
Right. So for most people, reproduction is down at the very bottom, a basic biological need. Food, shelter, reproduction, it's purely physiological. But for these women, specifically the ones in these extreme case studies, it feels like it's moved way up the pyramid.
Way up. It's past belonging. It's squarely up in self-actualization.
Exactly. It's the final piece of their identity puzzle. Without the child, the entire narrative of their life feels completely incomplete. They can't feel actualized until they have fulfilled this specific role.
I completely agree. It's not just about having a baby. It's about fulfilling a life narrative. For the single women mentioned in the text, it's about the biological clock ticking while they just haven't found a partner yet. For the second marriages, it's about cementing a brand new relationship with a shared child. It is deeply, deeply psychological. But as much as we love the psychology side of things, we really have to pivot.
Pivot to what?
To the biology, because no matter how self-actualized you feel mentally, no matter how strong your life narrative is, no matter how much you want it, your arteries are still 66 years old.
Right. And this is exactly where the psychology undergrad persona has to meet the pre-med reality. We need to look at Module 2, the biological and medical reality. The text provided some pretty scary statistics for mothers over 40, and especially those over 50.
Scary is putting it mildly. I think dangerous is the clinical term we should be using. We have to be brutally realistic about the toll this takes on the human body.
Yeah, I highlighted this whole section in red. It's a massive laundry list of complications. Let's run through them for the notes because these are absolutely going to be on a multiple choice section. Hypertension, that's high blood pressure.
Which is already a significant risk as you age anyway, but pregnancy puts a massive, massive strain on the cardiovascular system. You're literally pumping blood for two.
Gestational diabetes, premature rupture of membranes.
Hemorrhage, that's the really big one. And a very high need for C-sections. The text mentions that women over 40 are significantly more likely to have these surgical interventions.
Right.
It's not a natural birth scenario in most of these cases because the uterus muscle simply doesn't contract as effectively as it ages. It's called uterine atony.
And it's not just the moms facing the danger. The infant risks were pretty sobering too. Low APGAR scores, which, for those who haven't taken the development module yet, is the test they do right after birth to check heart rate, breathing, muscle tone.
Right. It's the immediate, how is this baby doing test. And babies born to much older mothers consistently score lower. They also have lower birth weight and much higher ICU requirements.
And then there was that Mincioria study from 2013 regarding the long-term outcomes. Because the argument you always hear is, well, if the baby survives birth, they're fine. But Mincioria found significantly higher risks of obesity and other metabolic conditions in children born to mothers over 35. So we aren't just talking about the 9 months of pregnancy, we are talking about a biological legacy being passed down.
It's long-term health programming. The environment in the womb directly affects a child's health for decades to come.
But here is where it gets really interesting and frankly a little infuriating. The readings bring up this massive gender double standard.
Oh, I was waiting for you to get to this. It is the giant elephant in the room.
So we see these headlines, world's oldest mom at 66, and there's panic, horror, ethics committees convening everywhere. Everyone has a very loud opinion. But then the text casually mentions biblical sages fathering children in old age. Abraham was, what, 100?
Exactly. And even today, just look at Hollywood. We have rock stars, huge actors, famous men having kids in their 70s and 80s, and literally nobody blinks an eye. It's treated as a sign of virility. Good for him.
It's so true. The text explicitly asks, why do we panic about older moms but not older dads? There's a deep-seated cultural bias that basically says men remain virile and highly capable of parenting forever, while women have a strict expiration date.
But the text did actually push back on that a bit scientifically, didn't it? It's not like older dads get a total free pass on biology just because they're men.
No, they don't. And that's a critical point for the exam, so make sure to mark this down. The text mentions that older fathers, and it doesn't specify the exact age, but we can safely assume 50 plus, are directly linked to higher risks of immune system weakness in their kids.
And neurodevelopmental disorders. The links to autism, schizophrenia, and bipolar depression are statistically significant.
So the sperm definitely does age. It's not timeless.
Exactly. It's all about epigenetics. The genetic quality absolutely declines over time. Copy errors happen. However, and this is the critical thinking check we really need to have right now, the risks are asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical how? Break that down for us.
Well, just look at the immediate physical cost. A 7-year-old man contributing sperm isn't risking his own physical survival to do so.
Right.
He's not stressing his cardiovascular system for 9 months straight. He's not risking a fatal stroke during labor. A 60-year-old woman carrying a pregnancy is legitimately risking heart failure or death. So the risk to the child might be shared, but the risk to the parent is very much concentrated on the mother.
That's a really distinct way to put it. Men don't risk their lives to conceive. Women do. That definitely complicates the whole equality argument. You can't just say men do it so women should too, when the physiological cost is so vastly different.
It does complicate it. It forces us to look hard at the biology, not just the sociology. And speaking of physiological costs, speaking of extreme risks to your health and the absolute need for restoration.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. You're pivoting to our survival strategy.
Look, we are talking about extreme exhaustion today. We are talking about older parents wishing they had more energy. And frankly, we are two undergrads cramming for a huge deep dive, and I am personally exhausted. My brain is totally fried.
I feel that deep in my bones. And you know what the actual key to surviving this semester and apparently surviving parenthood is? Extremely high-quality sleep.
Which is exactly why we are so pumped that this study session is sponsored by Cozy Earth.
Yes. Okay, listen to me. I know we are all on a tight student budget. I know we're usually just buying whatever's on sale at the big box store. I know the idea of luxury bedding sounds like something only for people with tenure. But Cozy Earth sent us their bamboo sheet set. And guys, it is actually life-changing.
It really is. I put them on my bed last week. They are temperature regulating, which is huge for me because I always overheat when I'm stressed about exams. They are incredibly soft. It's legitimately like sleeping on a cloud.
They are absolutely the softest sheets I've ever felt. And we know from our Basic Psych 101 class that sleep is crucial for memory consolidation. If you want to remember the difference between a negative write and a positive write for this exam, You need to sleep on it. You need that deep REM cycle.
And because we know sheets can be expensive for undergrads, we hooked it up for you. We have a 21% discount. That is a huge chunk of change saved.
21% is massive. You just need to use the promo code PSYC101. That is PSYC1-1. Just go to cozyearth.com, discount PSYC101.
Invest in your sleep. Your GPA will thank you. Your future self will definitely thank you.
Absolutely. Treat yourself.
Hey.
Okay, let's jump right back into the syllabus. We've done the wild headlines. We've done the scary medical stats. Now I really want to get into the qualitative stuff. This is Module 3, the lived experience.
This focuses heavily on the MacDougall, Bion, and Noctegal study. This was the one labeled Inconvenient Biology.
I loved this paper so much because it actually asked the parents how they felt. It wasn't just doctors judging them from afar or ethicists debating them in an ivory tower. It was real people. So the basic setup, they interviewed 46 couples and 15 singles. These were all first-time parents over 40 using IVF.
Right. And before we get into their actual answers, we have to do a quick research methods check. What did you notice about the specific demographics of this group?
Oh, totally skewed. They were incredibly wealthy. Like the median income was $150,000 to $199,000. Mostly Caucasian, extremely highly educated.
Exactly. So we have to acknowledge the major sampling bias here. The lived experience of being an older parent when you can easily afford nannies, housekeepers, and top-tier medical care is very, very different from doing it on a minimum wage budget. Money completely changes the parenting experience.
For sure. If you are 45 and exhausted, but you can hire a night nurse, that's an entirely different world than being 45, exhausted, and having to work a double shift. But even with that massive financial buffer, their answers were still fascinating. They listed a lot of advantages to waiting. The big one was emotional preparedness.
The no regrets factor, I found that really compelling. They basically all said, look, I partied hard in my 20s. I traveled the world. I built my career. I got it all out of my system.
Yeah, one quote was something like, I'm not fazed by a crying baby because I'm not sitting here wondering what I'm missing out on at the club. They just felt calmer. They felt like they had lived enough for themselves that they could finally now live for someone else. They weren't resentful of the time the child was taking from them.
And the financial security aspect ties directly into that. They weren't stressed about how to pay for diapers. They had political capital at work.
That's such a good term. Political capital. Let's define that clearly for the notes. It basically means they had been at their jobs for 15 years, so they had built up enough trust and authority. If they needed to take off early for a pediatrician appointment, nobody questioned their dedication.
Right. Whereas a 24-year-old junior associate does not have that luxury at all. They have to prove themselves every single day. So the older parents felt they could actually prioritize the child more easily because their careers were already firmly established.
And the relational stability was another big plus they mentioned. The text noted that for the older dads, especially those in second marriages, they were way more involved this time around. They weren't fiercely climbing the corporate ladder anymore, so they could actually be present at home.
One of the participants even said having a kid kept them young. It was the psychological effect of seeing the world through a child's eyes again. It literally forced them to be active. You can't just sit on the couch watching TV when you have a toddler running around.
But then came the reality check. The disadvantages.
The energy levels. This was the #1 complaint across the board. I wish I was 10 years younger.
You can have all the money in the entire world, but you cannot buy the raw energy of a 25-year-old. The physical toll of chasing a toddler at 45 or 50 is very real. One mom described it as just relentless.
And then there was what I called the math of life. This part got pretty dark, honestly. It stopped being about I'm tired and started being about I'm genuinely scared.
It did. It's the actuarial fear. The deep, lingering fear of dying before the child even reaches adulthood.
There was a quote from a dad who did the math in his head and realized, when my kid graduates high school, I'll be in my 70s. Or the fear of never seeing grandchildren. That is a really heavy psychological burden to carry, just knowing you will likely miss huge chapters of your own child's life.
And the social stigma, too. Being mistaken for grandparents at the park.
Oh man, that would be mortifying. You're at the playground and someone casual says, oh, your grandson is so cute, and you have to correct them. It creates this constant awkward reminder of your age.
And they worried about the kid being bullied for it, too. Why is your dad so old? Kids can be incredibly cruel. It puts the child in a position of having to explain their own family dynamic constantly.
Another major disadvantage that came up was family size limits. A lot of these couples really wanted 2 kids, but they just ran out of time. They ran out of viable eggs.
Inconvenient biology striking again. They started trying at 41, took 2 years to finally conceive via IVF, had the baby at 44, and by then the biological window for a second one was basically painted shut.
So taking all that into account, the medical risks, the lived experience, the math of life, we really have to move to Module 4, which is ethics, morality, and the law. This is where Kaplan and Patrizio really dig in.
This is the heavy-hitting philosophy stuff. The first major question they pose is postmenopausal IVF actually human experimentation?
That really stopped me in my tracks. Experimentation.
Yeah.
Because usually we think of experimentation as, testing a new pharmaceutical drug. But they argue that creating a brand new pregnancy in a hormone-depleted environment like a 60-year-old uterus is fundamentally experimental. We just don't have enough long-term data to know if it's truly safe.
And if it is experimental, then ethically it should require strict research protocols. It shouldn't just be something you can buy off a menu because you have a high-limit credit card. It should require serious oversight.
Then there is the moral link. Do we have a societal obligation to prevent harm to a child? Like, is it morally wrong to create a child knowing full well they will likely be orphaned by age 15?
Versus the moral good of creating life at all. It's a classic ethical dilemma. Does the child's fundamental right to parents override the woman's deep desire to mother? The text seems to suggest that we have to constantly weigh the potential harm of being orphaned against the certain joy of existence.
And that leads perfectly into the rights talk. We need to put on our political science hats for a second. The UN Declaration of Human Rights from 1948, it explicitly says we have a right to found a family.
Yes, but we absolutely have to distinguish between a negative right and a positive right. This is so crucial for the exam.
Okay, lay it out for us. This concept always trips people up.
So, a negative right means the government cannot stop you. They can't force sterilization on you. They can't come into your home and say you aren't allowed to have kids. You have the negative liberty to reproduce.
Right, it's freedom from outside interference.
Exactly. But a positive right would mean the government or society is obligated to provide you with the actual means to do it.
I see. So I have a right to try to get pregnant naturally, but the government doesn't have to buy me the expensive IVF to make it happen.
Precisely. And the conclusion in the text is that there's absolutely no international legal requirement to help a 65-year-old get pregnant. No one is violating her human rights by saying we won't treat you. The clinic has the right to refuse service based on medical ethics.
That distinction is huge because it completely explains the regulatory chaos we see around the world. The readings compared Italy, the UK, and the USA. It's like looking at 3 different planets.
Italy is the very restrictive model, or at least it was in 2004, under the specific laws described in the reading. They banned postmenopausal IVF entirely. They banned singles from getting it. You had to be a de facto stable couple.
So if you're single in Italy, you're just out of luck. The state literally decided what the ideal family structure was and legislated it.
Yes. Then you have the UK. They operate on what's called the welfare of the child model.
Which sounds nice in theory, but what does it actually mean practically?
It means the fertility clinic has to consider the child's need for a parent into young adulthood. So they might look at a 55-year-old patient and say, statistically, you might not be here to support this child at age 18, so we are denying treatment. It essentially puts the medical doctor in the role of a social worker.
And then there is the USA.
The marketplace model. The absolute Wild West of reproduction.
If you can pay, you can play.
Pretty much, yeah. The text notes that the ASRM, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine Issues guidelines, they strongly discourage postmenopausal IVF, but they don't actually ban it. It's ultimately up to the individual clinic's discretion.
Which perfectly explains why Maria del Carmen Brusada de Lara came to LA. She couldn't get it done in Spain, so she just brought her money to the US. It creates this whole industry of fertility tourism.
So, we have covered the extreme case studies, the severe medical risks, the tricky ethics. But I really want to land on something highly practical. Module 5, the optimal age algorithm. Because the McDougall study didn't just ask about the pros and cons, they asked these older parents point blank, if you could do it over, when is the best time?
This was the most surprising data point for me in the whole reading. You might logically expect these parents to say, oh, 45 was great, everyone should wait.
But they didn't say that at all.
No, they found a 5 to 10 year regret. Most of the participants wish they had started 5 to 10 years earlier than they actually did.
So if they had their kid at 43, they really wish they had done it at 33 or 34.
Right. There is a huge consensus on the sweet spot. The participants identified 30 to 35 as the optimal age.
30 to 35. Okay.
Oh.
Why that specific window?
It's the Goldilocks window.
I really like that. Let's break it down for everyone.
Okay. The 20s. According to these older parents, the 20s are too cold. You're too stressed out. You're too poor. You're too immature. You just haven't seen the world yet. You're still figuring out who you even are.
Fair enough. And the 50s and 60s.
Too hot. Way too risky. Too tired. The biology is just working against you way too hard. The medical risks we talked about, the hemorrhage, the C-sections are just too high.
So the early 30s are just right.
Exactly. You have enough social age, meaning you have maturity and a bit of money, but you still have enough biological age, meaning fertility and physical energy. It perfectly balances the two clocks.
That makes so much sense. It's really validating to hear that directly from people who have actually lived the alternative. It's not just society telling you to hurry up. It's people who waited saying, actually, don't wait too long.
It really challenges the modern narrative that we can just hit pause on biology indefinitely. Technology is truly amazing, but it can't fix the energy gap or the lifespan gap.
Wow. Okay, let's take a breath.
Yeah.
That was a ton of material. Let's do a quick outro review to make sure we are totally ready for the exam.
Sounds good. Let's check the learning objectives. Did we debate whether older women should be discouraged from this?
Yes, definitely. We covered the intense medical risks like hemorrhage and C-sections, and the ethical risks like orphan children.
Perfect. Did we outline the long-term outcomes?
Yes. We talked heavily about the financial stability of the older parents versus the potential health issues for the kids like obesity and the psychological impact of having grandparent parents.
I think we really nailed it. But before we close up the books for the day, I have one final provocative thought for you to chew on.
All right, hit me.
We keep talking about late maternal age based entirely on menopause, but we are rapidly entering an era of egg freezing. If a woman freezes her eggs at 25, biologically speaking, those eggs are 25 forever. And medical science is keeping us alive much longer. 80 is the new 60, supposedly. So if we remove the bad eggs part of the equation and we extend the human lifespan, will the definition of too old permanently shift?
That is a really trippy thought. Like, if you could guarantee you'd live to be 100, is having a kid at 60 really that bad ethically?
Or is there a hard biological line that human morality just shouldn't cross no matter what the technology allows us to do?
Man, that is absolutely going to keep me up tonight.
Well, if it keeps you up, at least you'll be lying comfortably on your cozy earth sheets.
Smooth plug. I love it. All right, everyone, study hard.
Don't forget to review your notes.
See you next class.